if this socialist mayor candidate wins in New York City, you're going to see real estate values skyrocket even more in Palm Beach because people are going to get out of that city. As bad as de Blasio was, this guy is like going to be way, way worse. He doesn't think that you should have law enforcement in dangerous parts of the city, that you should send in social workers. See how that works out for you. It ain't going to work out well. So, you know, they've made a lot of really dumb decisions, and we've benefited from it. But
oh, good morning, pineapples. Well, well, well. What's this? The dawn of a new socialist utopia? Soyuz Hiroshima. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. It's Wednesday, which you know means big brain time. The biggest brain of them all, the dad bod baboon. Don't look at his username and think, or hear his username and think, oh, he must be an unintellectual. No, he is the most intellectual of intellectuals. He just dropped $5 in my tip jar. And says to all the ladies living in New York, have you purchased your burqa yet? Oh, God. Amy J. Eves, Joni Rankin, hanging out with Quest Fanning and so many others like Thormock. Thormock, you're back. Yeah. That's how we know we did a good job. We got some audience capture. When we get shared to the front page of Rumble like we did yesterday, we meet all these new people, and some of them we hope will stay. And when you see somebody staying over the next day, it means you got them. You got them. Yes. And that's how it should work. It should be voluntary. It should be, that's how capitalism works, but not New York City because...
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Grab your wallets, lock up your grocery shelves. Make sure your landlord doesn't overhear this broadcast because the Democratic Party in New York just took a hard left straight off a cliff. The new Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City isn't just a progressive. That's actually a little too tame for him. He's not a socialist in name only. He is a democratic socialist in full bloom. What does that smell? Smells like hunger. Zohran Mamdani, the 33-year-old assemblyman from Queens who wants price controls, rent freezes, and wait for it, government-run grocery stores. Yikes. Free buses, because nothing says modern solutions like East German food lines. Now, Mamdani didn't just beat a local dog catcher. He toppled Andrew Cuomo. Remember Andrew Cuomo, the COVID king, Emmy Award winner turned scandal magnet? Cuomo got trounced by 70,000 votes despite having millions from big donors and the blessing of the Democratic old guard. He ran on competence, but apparently not the kind that involves showing up to vote. Oh, my God, it's going to be a mess.
What's your evidence that Mamdani would return New York City to the 1970s hellhole Times Square? What is your evidence of
It's very simple. So he wants to raise taxes on people who make the most money. What eventually is going to happen is you're going to lose that tax base. Once you lose that tax base, our bonds will get degraded. Now the city budget will not be substantial enough to subsidize not only the cops, but the fire department, the sanitation department. Once you start losing Wall Street and people who pay $11,000, $12,000 a month to live on the Upper East Side, you're done. Let me
ask
you. And you go back to the 70s when Gerald Ford said to New York, drop dead.
Okay, but hold on, Arthur.
Crisis.
But Arthur, just as somebody who is just listening to you, you raise the taxes on wealthy people in this city, maybe a couple percent, right?
They're already at 50%.
Yeah, they're already
53%.
and that's exactly my point. They're already paying some of the high. I know, Arthur, but Arthur, they are already paying right at this moment some of the highest taxes in the country, and you think that 1 or 2% is going to cause a mass exodus out of New York?
Anna just said it's correct. It already has started.
I just want to be clear that that's what you're saying, because I think that seems pretty extreme.
Because he's also not going to focus on crime. Right now, you have Police Commissioner Tisch and John Chell, the chief of the department. Crime in the city city of New York right now is set to break all records as the lowest ever in recorded history for shootings and murders. Once that starts going up in the other direction, and the tax base is gone, and sanitation is gone, and schools are gone.
Why is crime go up?
It's such a comedy of errors. It strikes me as the last days of Rome in New York City. Now, he has only won the Democratic primary, so there is still a smidgen of hope. Normally, whoever wins the Democratic mayoral primary in New York City is going to be the next mayor of New York. But it's not the end. Maybe Quest Fanning over there in the chat, he's our Brooklyn. Quest can literally walk out his front door right now and taste the finest, the best pizza in the whole world. Better than what's in Italy, better than what's in California, better than anywhere in the world. Quest Fanning, the lucky duck. At least Zohran Mamdani won't be able to mess up New York's pizza. So can you imagine if you went to New York City, if there's one guaranteed way to make sure that New York City goes bankrupt, is for Zohran Mamdani they're going to make government-run pizza stores. Can you imagine? Can you imagine messing up New York pizza? So Mamdani, he's got the energy of a TikTok Marxist and the enthusiasm of a guy who's never had to run a business. He ran circles around the machine. Yeah, I remember how enthusiastic I was before I ran a business. And now I'm like, oh my God, please, am I going to be able to pay my employees? Cuomo's ads were scaremongering. Mamdani's were Instagrammable. And guess who the kids showed up for? We're witnessing a generational shift, not towards wisdom, but towards economic fantasies. The voters that voted for Mamdani, they don't want to fix New York. They want to transform it into Portland with somehow less deodorant. New York City smells in the springtime. And now it's springtime for hobos and piss-smelling subways. You know what's scarier than a socialist with a vision? A competent socialist with a vision. And that's what New York City has got. And let's be clear, this isn't just about NYC. The Mamdani campaign is a canary in a coal mine. This kind of stuff is happening all over the United States. Mamdani is Donald Trump, quote, Donald Trump's worst nightmare as a progressive Muslim immigrant. Great.
I am Donald Trump's worst nightmare as a progressive Muslim immigrant who actually fights for the things that I believe in. And the difference between myself and Andrew Cuomo is that my campaign is not funded by the very billionaires who put Donald Trump in D.C. I don't have to pick up the phone from Bill Ackman or Ken Langone. I have to pick up the phone for the more than 20,000 New Yorkers who contributed an average donation of about $80 to break fundraising records and put our campaign in second place.
I am the person on this stage who represents the working men and women.
I am.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
So let's not downplay what's happening here in New York. I mean, this isn't just a Bronx tale, it's a Bolshevik one. The city that once birthed the Statue of Liberty just crowned a man who wants to replace it with the Statue of Rationing. Zohran Mamdani isn't your garden variety liberal. He's not even like a Bernie-style Nordic welfare state dreamer. The guy wants government-run grocery stores. Think about that. Government-run grocery stores. Because if there's one thing that the DMV taught us, it's how efficient the government is at handling people in long lines. Food distribution. I'm sure there will be excellent customer service there. Forget Trader Joe's. Get ready for Commissar Zohran's People's Pantry, where you'll wait 6 hours for black bread and your state-issued almond milk. Womp womp. Where's my womp womp? Abu Bakr al-Bakr al-Baghdadi. Durka Durka. And the rent freezes. This is great. It sounds great. A rent freeze. Wow, my rent isn't going to go up this year. That's great until your landlord is then forced to sell to the state and suddenly the city owns your apartment. They'll call it housing justice. You're going to call it moldy walls and no heat. Let's talk about the free bus fares too for a moment. Let's zero in. Have you ever ridden in a New York City bus before it was free? Okay, now imagine it after. Okay, after it's free. If you've never ridden a New York bus, now I'll tell you, wait until it's free. It's going to be packed. I mean, they're already pretty full. Now they're free. There's no cost to entry. Think about all of the people. You couldn't keep the homeless people off of the subways, and they're still charging, I don't know, $4 or $5 a ride or something. Quest, fill us in on the chat and what's New York City's like to go one way. Last I checked, in DC they charge you for how far you go. In New York, at least it used to be that you would just pay one fee and ride anywhere in the subway. So if they've changed that, let us know. But think about a free bus. Right? They couldn't keep them off the subway. What do you think is going to happen to the buses? Can you imagine a more dysgenic experience getting on a bus in New York City with all of the people who can't afford any other transportation options, right? What are they going to do? Or they can't afford it because the prices of everything else went up. The taxes went up on the rich people. So what do? All the rich people in the city who own the grocery stores, they're just going to pass the tax on to the consumers. So then more people are going to be riding the bus. And then what's going to happen? Those buses are going to be filthy, disgusting. It's going to be like, what was that experience? Did you guys ever see that movie? Was it Romancing the Stone from the 1980s with like Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas? When she rides the bus in the very beginning of the movie to like Cartagena, she's supposed to be going to Cartagena, and there's like chickens and there's shit. Have you ever seen a train in India? How they ride those trains in India, and they're riding on the top of the trains, and it's like a socialist, the third world socialist hellhole. This is what New York City has voted for. The free buses, no funding for the buses. Eventually, no maintenance, zero incentive for the drivers to show up in time because you can't fire them. You're not going to be able to fire them. Of course, there's going to be those controls. You can't cut a paycheck from a promise, right? But Zohran's real strength isn't policy, obviously. No shit. It's optics. He's got the right beard. He's got the right buzzwords. He's got the Instagram aesthetic. And of course, he's got the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez approved social media presence. And in this new politics, let's call it vibes over values. That's all it takes. So you've got Cuomo with $25 million and every union endorsement in the city beaten by a guy who won Twitter. I guess I was a little bit too early for my time when I ran because they called me the social media candidate back before social media became the real world. And now it seems as if we've crossed the Rubicon in terms, or what would we say this is? Now it used to be that they would say that in campaigns that social media wasn't the campaign. Now it appears as if social media is the campaign, right? And how is the national media responding to this? Well, of course, they're hailing this like it's the next John F. Kennedy moment. Oh, look. The passion, the diversity, the youth movement. Oh, you're going to see things like this at the executive level now in New York City.
Do you think that constitutes critical research? According to your testimony, NIH grants are critical research?
I think that government research of all types in the medical...
Including birthing people?
I think bench research of all types plays a fundamental role.
What is a birthing person?
Sir, I am here to talk about the Doge impact.
Well, I'm asking you about this grant and you're defending it. So I'm asking you, who is birthing people?
I am not familiar with this grant.
Mm-hmm.
I take a position that all kinds of government research, medical, pharmaceutical,
is a birthing person a woman? Is that another word for female?
That is outside the scope of my expertise.
Seems like erasure language to me. I've been told that type of vernacular constitutes erasure language. How about another one? How about the...
good job there, Greg. That sounds to me like erasure. Wednesdays are for karate. You're the best. No, it really is karate tonight.
Conference, Gender Equity in the Mathematical Study of Commutative Algebra. Do you think that that's a valid form of government spending?
I think mathematical research of all types is deserving of government.
What about studying, and this is directly from the National Science Foundation's website, women and non-binary mathematicians?
Again, I think all kinds of government investment should be dedicated toward mathematical.
All kinds of government investment. You don't have any kind of limit on what we're spending our money on? Just everything? Is that your testimony?
I am talking about Doge. You brought up.
So am I. This is a grant that Doge cut.
I am not familiar with this particular grant, but I think government investment in mathematical, biological.
Okay. Let's do another one. This one is called hashtag Transcendent Health. Adapting an LGB plus inclusive teen pregnancy prevention program for transgender boys. I can't even say this without laughing. Do you think that is a useful form of our tax spend?
I am not familiar with that grant, but I think bench research, government investment in scientific and pharmaceutical
teen pregnancy
research.
for transgender boys. Do you think that is a useful spend of our tax dollars?
I think government investment in all kinds of scientific research is of the utmost importance.
Including pregnancy prevention for transgender boys. Okay.
Pregnancy prevention for transgender boys. Now, you may think, well, do they need pregnancy prevention if they're transgender boys? But remember, the terms are confusing. When it's transgender boys, it means biological woman. Yay! Helps to have a wife who's a therapist. She helps me understand the latest gree. Yeah, so let's continue our discussion about what's happening in New York City. I've got some more clips for you. I've got Bernie Sanders actually got fact-checked by Joe Rogan on climate change. It's a great discussion. We'll get to that in just a moment. And I've also got Judge Andrew Napolitano on the show today. We're also going to talk about RVs. Anybody here fans of RVs or bought an RV before, traveled in an RV, wanted to have an RV? If you've dabbled in RVs at all, you know that they almost universally are money pits, just like a boat. Everything breaks down. And there was a great article in the Wall Street Journal talking about how even Warren Buffett couldn't fix the RVs to get them to stop breaking down. We're going to talk about that this morning. We've got Judge Napolitano to defend Thomas Massie. We're also going to talk about how Generation Z is cutting back on spending. They're not going to expensive, lavish bars to spend their money. Instead, they're setting up their own little parties at home, which honestly I think is a great idea because we need to be having more house parties, in my opinion, because this country just isn't partying enough. What do you say? Do you agree, Drew Van Runkle, Bucks Nasty, Amy J. Eves, Quest Fanning, and all of our friends like Relaxium McGroin over there in the chat? I know you do. So the most telling moment in the whole circus of the Democratic primary, which led to Zohran Mamdani winning the Democratic primary, it wasn't Mamdani's speech. It wasn't really the handsome beard. It wasn't even Cuomo's concession. It was Governor Kathy Hochul's reaction. So she has kind of become the de facto head of the Democratic Party. She put out this mealy-mouthed congratulations, like she just found out her house was infested with termites but didn't want to offend the bugs. Today, voters made their voices heard, demanding a more affordable, more livable New York City. I hear them loud and clear. Wow, the mouth couldn't get more mealy if it was coming from Zohran Mamdani's mouth. Here's some interesting sounds coming from Zohran Mamdani's mouth.
Because I think that New Yorkers, more than they hate a politician they disagree with, they hate a politician they can't trust.
On the subject of trust, you've adopted different speaking accents in different scenarios.
But they go to their local bodega.
Is there one that's real and one that's affected?
What I would say is, as any immigrant knows, having been born in Kampala, Uganda, and then raised in South Africa and moving here when I'm 7 years old, is there are different parts of my life.
Worldwide tour is a worldwide tour is a worldwide tour.
Mamdani was talking about a worldwide press tour back when he was a rapper.
Bring the flavor to the fish, bring the flavor to the rice, flavor to the rice.
In a Disney movie directed by his mother.
Nepotism and hard work goes a long way. Here in New York City.
Nepotism and hard work goes a long way. Oh, good morning, pineapple. You're looking very good and very nice.
Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice.
Parents are so afraid of what's out there that they can't talk about what's down there. They're afraid to talk to their kids about anything, says Kate. Well, thank you, Kate, and thank you, Quest. Andy Opperman, he's already champing at the bit to talk about boats, RVs, and swimming pools, all things that require more time on maintenance in a year than the recreation time most people will get out of them. Oops, whoopsie. We will get there, Andy. They are very tempting, though. Maybe just rent one. Can you rent an RV? I would think that would be a good way to go. Steelbringer, he's gifting subs over there in the chat. Why are you so generous? What are you trying to do? Keep the Wake Up America show online? What do you want to be able to watch this show next month? Oh, what is it? You want us to be able to finish the documentary and have all kinds of awesome video and voice effects and Foley and all kinds of stuff that's going to be super expensive to complete the thing? Then what is it? Is that what it is? Are you guys just trying to keep this For Liberty network alive? Is that what you're doing? You're making all those donations and subs because, gosh darn it, people like us. Well, thank you. We appreciate it. So yeah, Governor Kathy Hochul mealy-mouthed with her response, but, New Yorkers didn't demand a more affordable, livable New York City. What they actually demanded was subsidized everything, paid for by the very people that are now fleeing to Florida and Texas. Drew Van Runkle says, documentary about Building 7. You won't like it, Drew. You won't like a documentary that I do about Building 7. You better just keep building help me build the documentaries about, battles of Athens and movies about Lysander Spooners and things like that. So here's the dirty secret. Mamdani doesn't want to make New York livable. Oh God, no shit. He wants to make it equally miserable because that's socialism in practice. You drag the top down instead of lifting the bottom up. And let's not forget the strident opposition to Israel. Well, you knew that was coming. The guy's foreign policy makes Rashida Tlaib look like Golda Meir. If you think that isn't going to bleed into city decisions, think again. When your mayor is cheering on boycotts and bashing allies, I'm sorry, but it affects everything from public sentiment to business partnerships. Here's a nice tweet from Zohran Kwame Mamdani. He says, we don't need an investigation to know that the NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety. What we need to do is defund the NYPD. So as much as I love my wife, Stephanie, she's a social worker. If anybody could fix people's problems as a social worker, as a therapist, it might be my wife, Steffi. But 90%, I'll say 90-ish approximately percent, in my speculation, of therapists and social workers are not going to make things better. Now, imagine the 90% that you send into New York City. Now, I would not send my worst enemy, well, maybe my worst enemy, into some of these slums in New York. In lieu of the NYPD, to send a social worker in, right? To think that you're not going to have problems if you defund the NYPD and you start sending social workers. I feel bad for this. Can you imagine these sweet? Just think about it, because there are a lot of them are like Stephanie, right? Really sweet, really light, but she has a very slight frame. She's petite. Sending her into situations where you would normally send the NYPD and not think that they're not just gonna they're gonna cook their bones. I mean, they would make a bone broth soup out of the women that they're gonna send into these things. Tastes like chicken. No. Zohran Mamdani believes that government can guarantee dignity for everyone.
For me, when you ask what does it mean to be a democratic socialist, for me it means to be fighting for a society in which dignity is guaranteed to each and every member of this place. And I believe that the state should play a critical role in the distribution of that dignity and the ensuring that that dignity is actually received. This is one case where Republicans would be correct. There are taxes that I want to raise. They would like to portray this as me trying to raise taxes on someone making 50, 60, 70K, which is not the case. What we need to do is raise taxes on those who have more than enough and should share a little bit more with the rest of the society. There's nothing hidden from plain view about who I am and what I want to fight for. I'm not secretly telling everyone I'm a socialist now. This is something we built the campaign around. For me,
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Yikes. Good Lord, the state needs to stay the hell out of our lives, says Thormock. Hell yes, Thormock. Oh, so this election, it wasn't just about Cuomo's failure. It was about the Democratic Party's collapse. They built this monster. They let it fester, and now it's devouring them from within. Boris Rivkin over on X says, as a raised New Yorker who lived through 20 glorious years of Giuliani and Bloomberg governance, and then the years of decline from de Blasio onwards, I just have to ask my one-time urban neighbors, are you insane? Sad. Where is my Bernie Sanders clip? It's here somewhere. It's here somewhere. It's here somewhere. It's here somewhere. Oh, here we go. This is Bernie Sanders on Joe Rogan on climate change.
You got to deal with this climate change issue. And I know that, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax.
There we go. So we're pivoting now to another classic of progressive ideology, climate panic. Here's Bernie Sanders on the Joe Rogan podcast. Bernie comes in, hot fire and brimstone. We're all going to die. But Joe Rogan, armed with facts instead of feels, pulled up a study showing that we are actually living one of the coolest periods of history. Whoops.
I think the last 10 years have been the warmest on record. And we can create millions of good-paying jobs, transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency, to solar, to wind, and other sustainable energies.
I think the climate change issue is very complicated, and I think did you see the
just that right there is high. If you can't say that, because remember the whole trust the science thing, it wasn't just about vaccines. Trust the science was originally a global warming thing. So when you say trust the science, I think it's complicated. You can't say that as a Democrat. You can't say I think it's complicated. Joe Rogan is fully off the reservation. Andy Opperman over in the chat says, service to individual liberty is the highest calling of mankind. Amen, brother. Free people will have disparate results. Those that force equal results are subverted to the service of evil. Amen.
Climate change issue is very complicated. And I think, did you see the Washington Post piece that they wrote where they did this long-term view? First of all, the reality is that the Earth's temperature has never been static, right? We could both agree on that. It's always been up and down. There's been ice ages and heat waves. And then the Washington Post looked at it. What was the time period that they looked at? That essentially they found that we're in a cooling period, that the Earth over the past X amount of years, and this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report
he's being so delicate because he was a Bernie bro. Joe Rogan comes from the left. He is not, he's sugarcoated. It was very inconvenient. Also, maybe Rogan is smarter than we give him credit for, because does anybody remember the name of the Al Gore documentary, An Inconvenient Truth? If Rogan is really on another level operating here, then I have to say, what did he need the Dave Smith for to go after Douglas Murray in the debate? Why did he need Dave? Because he was talking about he needed someone smarter than him on that thing. He seems like Joe Rogan is a little smarter than he gives himself credit for.
Past X amount of years, And this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report the data, and kudos to them for doing that. Scientists have captured the Earth's climate change over the last 485 million years. Here's a surprising place we stand now. So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't read that article, but
yeah.
The science.
Wait. Hold on. I'm sorry. I aspirated over that. Hold on.
So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't read that article, but the scientists who are out there, I think.
I know, but there's a lot of money involved in that too, Bernie. That's part of the problem. There's a lot of money involved in this whole climate change emergency issue, and there's a lot of control, and that's a big part of this problem.
Let's give it up for Joe Rogan. 485 million years of data, the hottest periods on Earth. Not now. In fact, this is the icebox era. Grab this information and use it. Climate swings are natural, dramatic, and they have happened before the F-150 even existed. Climate swings are natural. Volcanoes did more damage than your gas stove ever will. Take a look at the chart. The headline of the article reads, "Scientists have captured Earth's climate over the last 485 million years. Here's the surprising place we stand now." That's the title. The article included a chart tracking temperatures all the way back to 485 million years ago. And it turns out we're living in one of the coolest periods on record. There goes the entire socialist global warming experiment. Oh, no. Sanders rebounded with a take on big food, saying...
You remember there's a photograph, a very famous photograph. I don't know when it was done, 50s, maybe 60s, 70s, I don't know, of the tobacco industry executives coming before Congress. And
yes.
You remember that photograph?
Yes.
And the congressman said to him, tell me, I maybe get this a little bit wrong, are you aware that cigarettes kill people? No, Congressman, we have no evidence to that effect, right?
Right,
They
exactly.
were lying through their teeth.
Of course.
All right.
Yeah.
And it's exactly, your analogy is exactly right. These food manufacturers know exactly that they are causing obesity and God knows what else in kids, leading to diabetes. They know exactly what they're doing.
Right.
And they're lying. And they're opposing all of us who are trying to, among other things, make our food supply healthier.
Yeah. Now, listen, I'm not saying that, we shouldn't be good stewards of the earth, but when your climate theology can't survive a Spotify podcast with a comedian, maybe it's time to revisit your scriptures. Bernie wagging his fingers like he's waving it at a bagel. Oh, God, I hate when people wag their fingers at me. Relaxing McGroin says, wait, we have 450 million years of data? Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, those scientists who go to Antarctica and they go down into the ice and they drill those long drills and they pull out those long rods of ice, it shows the temperature data that we can see from all the way back 450 million years. I think I have the Washington Post article, at least I did earlier, pulled it up. No, I don't. I've got a bunch of Trump clips talking about Iran. Let's see what else we have. Oh my God, I have an awesome video of the B-2 bomber leaving from Missouri. Let's just watch that real quick and then I'm going to pivot. This is Missouri, baby. Coming to kill ya. Look at this beautiful machinery. I don't know if you've ever been to a game, a Mizzou game, but these things fly, do a flyover at the games, and it is just so epic. It looks like pixels are missing from the sky when it flies over because of its unique shape. No audio. No audio on this, just visuals. Here you go. Look at that thing, man. If you see that thing coming in right there, can you imagine being an Iranian nuclear scientist? And everybody's sucking sand. Allahu Akbar. America, yeah, coming again to save the fucking world, yeah, America. Oh my God, Stephanie, guys, I'm an idiot. I didn't have it on the right scene. There it is. Hold on. No wonder there was no sound. Look at me, I'm just ad-libbing. You should start making the B-2 bomber Mezuzah AP. I'd buy it. That's a great idea. Check out these suckers. Beautiful. It's like it's almost like a piece of paper. It's so thin. It's amazing that pilots can actually sit in that thing, and that there's a toilet in there and microwaves. Look at that beautiful machine. Can you imagine a caveman seeing that? Gorgeous, beautiful Missouri. Where's the video? No visual. Wow, it's green. 2B2. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. I'm AP. The Pennsylvania chase is back, Patriots, and we're hitting the ground running. In 2025, we are knocking on 500,000 doors, God, Cliff, across Pennsylvania to build an unbreakable red wall for liberty so Democrats can never win another major election in our lifetime. The deep state and woke Democrats want to steal our future. We say, not on our watch. Join us at the PA Chase. Pound the pavement. Secure future victories against future Zohran Mamdanis. Sign up at thepachase.com. That's THEPA Chase, CHASE, chase.com. And let's make Pennsylvania the heart of the MAGA movement. The fight for freedom throughout the country depends on PA. Learn more at pachase.com. That's pachase.com to get involved, and follow them on X and Instagram at the PA Chase. Thank you very much. Cliff got 580,000 last year. Yes. Almost ready. Bad Morning says last name backward, or your name backwards. Well, hopefully we're going to give you a little better morning. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. This is a funny story, kind of sad, but also a portend perhaps of future things. Now, folks, if you thought Washington couldn't get more embarrassing, allow me to introduce to you Exhibit A in the Why Matt Gaetz Should Never Be Attorney General file. A 72-second viral video of Matt Gaetz texting his mom on a plane. Points for texting your mother, demerits for not having some kind of a privacy screen. Listen to this. Yes, his mom. He was texting his mom about Trump, about money, about life advice on a giant font screen that a stranger, of course, filmed from the row behind him. And it's all right there in living pixels on the New York Post, posted to TikTok with the caption, POV, you're sitting behind Matt Gaetz and he's texting his mommy. Andy Opperman, thanks for the subs, my brother. Especially your name, last word. We've got a nice sub. You can now access all of the fun extra little emojis. So Matt Gaetz was texting his mom. Let's read the text out loud, America, because this is the theater of the absurd. And you paid for the front row seats, did you not? Yes. You got them. So first, Matt Gaetz' mom warns him like she's coaching a high schooler through a prom drama here. She said, don't be criticizing the president or his actions. He's trying to keep us safe. That's his job. MAGA will turn on you. You will lose viewership. That's right. Viewership. Not freedom, not truth, ratings. And then she hits him with this career advice. She says, your days in Congress are over. Let's not mess up the media gig. Okay. Probably good advice, Mom. Mothers do love their children. Some. Oof. That's an oof. When your mother's your manager, your PR rep, and your MAGA handler, maybe it's time to consider turning off iMessage on airplanes. Gaetz responds, desperately trying to defend his free-thinking bona fides, says, I'm trying to guide him, not criticize him. I've never been freer to share my views, and I'll continue to do so. Then he gets philosophical. I think about the people who cheered for the Iraq war because they liked Bush. Those people have blood on their hands. Okay, Sure, Matt, but maybe don't process your geopolitical trauma on Delta Row 14 with airdrop enabled. Okay. Remember, if it's all about ratings and not about what, then it's not really about what's true, because here's the problem. If you want ratings, you cannot broadcast the truth, because if there's one thing that the great masses of people do not like, it is the truth. The last thing that they want is the truth. If people loved truth, Zohran Mamdani would not have won the Democratic primary in New York City. His mom then, so then of course his mom is kind of dogging him. So naturally the conversation turns to flexing. He says, so his mom asks him a serious question. How many times do you want to hit the wall? Oh my God, dude. Oh man, if my dad had sent me a text like that, I'd be like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. How many times do you want to hit the wall? Which I guess leads one to question, how many times has Matt Gaetz hit the wall? So then he replies with the subtlety of a late-stage Instagram influencer. He says, I'm a happily married man with a son on the way, 2 penthouse condos, a 1:1 real estate to debt ratio, and $500,000 in my bank account cash. So I'm just sitting here wondering, did Trump nominate this guy for attorney general or Real Housewives of Fort Walton Beach? Later, when the text went viral, Gaetz jumped online to say, please let this be a reminder, everyone, to call your mother and maybe get a screen protector. It's too funny. It's too funny. Oh, God. Okay, Matt. Here's a better reminder. If you're going to guide the leader of the free world, maybe don't do it in 48 point on a plane filled with bored Gen Z TikTokers. Look, I'm not here to pile on, right? But this is not what deep state means. This is just deep cringe. And for a guy who once held serious national ambitions, this was an own goal that even Hunter Biden would laugh at. Now, looking back on the fact that Trump almost made him attorney general, it's like watching a deleted scene from that show Veep. Maybe this is a sign. If you're caught live texting your MAGA crisis strategy on a commercial flight, maybe, just maybe, you're not the best pick for America's top law enforcement job. But at least he didn't text about Iranian sleeper cells, so progress? I don't know. Speaking of progress.
And the president looks over at me, puts the foreign leader on mute and says, this is not going very well, and he presses the red button. and my eyes get really big, and I'm like, Mr. President, what just happened? And he looks at me and he goes, nuclear. Nuclear. And 2 minutes later, a guy walks in with a Diet Coke, and he looks back at me and he says, it wasn't nuclear, it's just the Diet Coke button. And that's... So that's the kind of guy, and my fellow Republicans, that we have as the President of the United States.
Honestly, can you imagine how much fun it would be to work with Donald Trump? Because he's not like all the other presidents who probably were deeply serious and, yes, it's an exciting job in many ways, but in other ways, the president's always keeping a lid on things. Instead, Trump has a red button nearby and he goes, nuclear, and he pushes the red button and JD's like, what just happened? And then somebody walks in with a Diet Coke. I mean, that is an astounding level of comedy. My favorite stand-up comedian, as well as Gavin. Here we go. Did you guys see the story about the apparent leaks to CNN about the Iranian strikes?
Yeah, I'd be angry if I were him. I mean, he's the president of the United States, and now he's got a part of the bureaucracy that's leaking top secret, sensitive military information. I mean, we're in the immediate aftermath of a military exercise. This document was not produced for public consumption. It was produced for top secret internal government consumption, and now it's out in the public domain. So if I were him, I'd be mad about that, number one. Look, there's more info to come. There's 17 other intelligence agencies inside the government that have to produce some kind of information. The head of the IAEA says that substantial damage and substantial setbacks have occurred in the program. And it's no doubt that the combined efforts of both Israel and the United States have done a substantial amount of damage to Iran's capabilities here. How much damage? How long have we set them back? I think we don't know exactly yet. This very early in all this. But if I were the president,
keeps saying completely obliterate.
If I were the president and my government was leaking top secret military information after what our military did, which was execute a precision military strike, I'd be pissed.
Yeah, absolutely. Another Scott Jennings banger on CNN. CNN disclosed top secret information on live TV.
It was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it is worth noting that it is a very early assessment. The strikes were only a matter of days ago, and the intelligence community is still gathering intelligence. They are still working to come up with a full, comprehensive picture of what exactly happened here. But based on a battle damage assessment that was carried out by U.S. Central Command, essentially looking at the images and looking at what was actually damaged, the Defense Intelligence Agency has assessed that the core components of Iran's nuclear program are largely intact, and that Iran's nuclear program has essentially only been set back by months. Now, we presented this information to the White House for comment, and White House Press Secretary Karen Leavitt, she did acknowledge the existence of this assessment, but she said in a statement that the administration disagrees with it. She said, quote, "This alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community. The leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted a perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their targets, total obliteration." Now, it is worth noting here that there has been dissent, I should say, within the intelligence community, within the defense community, about just how much of an impact these massive bunker buster bombs would actually have on Iran's nuclear facility. It was far from certain, given that these bombs had never been tested in an actual combat scenario, whether they would actually penetrate those very, very deep underground tunnels that lie underneath these nuclear facilities. And what we are told is that as of now, this Defense Intelligence Agency assessment, it does conclude at this point, again, it is still very early, that those underground facilities, including the centrifuges, including the highly enriched uranium that everyone has been talking so much about, those are largely intact. Now, of course, this does stand at odds with what President Donald Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth have been saying in recent days about the impact of these U.S. military strikes. Of course, President Trump said it was totally obliterated, and Secretary Hegseth did as well. And he actually also provided CNN with a statement. And he said that, quote, "Based on everything we have seen, and I've seen it all, our bombing campaign obliterated Iran's ability to create nuclear weapons. Our massive bombs hit exactly the right spot at each target and worked perfectly. The impact of those bombs is buried under a mountain of rubble in Iran, so anyone who says the bombs were not devastating is just trying to undermine the president and the successful mission." Now, our sources did emphasize here that there was severe damage that was done largely to the above-ground structures at these nuclear sites. And so there was damage done, of course, by these massive bombs. But the core components of the nuclear program, we are told, they are largely intact, and it only set the program back by a matter of months.
Interesting. Well, the White House is contradicting that, but we'll have to wait and see. But it does appear as if it should be a top priority for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to find out where these leaks are coming from the intelligence community and to route them out. All right, now, folks, coming up after this break, we got a man who doesn't need to call his mother for advice. Yes, because he already has the Constitution in one hand and a loaded rhetorical revolver on the other. Judge Andrew Napolitano is going to join us at the top of the hour. We're going to talk about his powerful new column, The Coming Police State. He warns that history is repeating itself, that the surveillance state is not only growing, it's metastasizing. And the Iran-Israel conflict heating up. We're already hearing calls from the usual suspects, more power, fewer rights. But the judge asks the real question. If the government's spying on us to keep us safe, who's going to keep us safe from them? Don't go away. We'll be right back with Judge Andrew Napolitano to talk about Thomas Massie, Iran, Israel, and the loss of rights and freedom on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Founding Father
fathers dreamed of liberty, they forgot one thing: coffee. Introducing Founding Flavors Coffee, the brew that built America, and the brew that's fueling a new revolution, one kitchen at a time. Small batch roasted, Patriot approved, and disappearing faster than a red.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back, with sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist, Visit AP for Liberty Shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
I'd like to see a deal with Russia. As you know, Vladimir called me up. He said, can I help you with Iran? I said, no, I don't need help with Iran. I need help with you. And I hope we're going to be getting a deal done with Russia.
He doesn't need help with Iran. He needs help with Putin, he says. That's President Donald Trump on Air Force One yesterday. All right, folks, grab your Constitution. Hold it tight. The cavalry of common sense is here. Joining us now, a man who's been sounding the alarm on government overreach longer than most politicians have been reading their talking points, a fierce defender of civil liberties, a scholar of natural rights, and a thorn in the side of tyrants from both parties. You've seen him on the bench, you've seen him on TV, and now you're about to hear him lay out exactly why America is sliding into a surveillance state disguised as a safety net. His new column, The Coming Police State, is a wake-up call from warrantless surveillance to weaponized bureaucracy. Judge Napolitano here to remind us, when government gets bigger for your protection, it never shrinks back down. Let's welcome to Wake Up America, the one and only Judge Andrew Napolitano. Good morning, Judge.
Thank you, Austin. What a beautiful, generous, articulate introduction. Thank you very much. I'm steamed. I'm steamed at the president violating the Constitution. I'm steamed at the president dropping bombs. I'm steamed at the president attacking Congressman Thomas Massie, who's the premier defender of the Constitution in the Congress. I'm steamed at police with masks on and badges hidden, arresting people without warrants. I'm steamed at the coming police state. And who better to discuss all that with but my former acolyte.
Padawan, too. The Star Wars reference, I think, will be appreciated by our audience for sure. Judge, let's talk about the news. Congressman Massie introduces a resolution related to the War Powers Act on this strike. He says that he's willing to back off of calling for this vote if if there is a lasting ceasefire. Can you give us your analysis of the situation?
Well, the president on his own decided to attack a sovereign country, which was engaged, even if the president's argument is correct, in a lawful activity approved by the United Nations and found by the United Nations' own agents, the IAEA, to be consistent with the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And that is the enrichment of uranium for non-weapon purposes. The United States has signed the treaty. Iran has signed the treaty. Israel has not. Iran allows all the inspections the UN wants. The United States intelligence community and the UN inspectors said there's no weapons here and there's no efforts to produce a weapon. In response to arm twisting and deceptions and flattery from Benjamin Netanyahu, the president decided to drop these bombs. He spent $100 million, dispatched 125 vehicles, almost all jets, to drop bombs on empty tunnels. Did damage, but no damage whatsoever, not measurable damage anyway, to the civilian nuclear enrichment activities of a sovereign country. Massie argues that that is an act of war, the use of military on a sovereign country. Trump argues that that's consistent with the War Powers Resolution. Well, the War Powers Resolution, which allows a president to wage a war for 60 days without a congressional declaration of war, has two major defects. One is it consists of the Congress giving away a core function to another branch of the government. What is a core function? One that is articulated in the Constitution. Just as the president can't make the chief justice the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, the Congress can't let the president declare war. Second aspect of the War Powers Resolution is it has a trigger. The trigger is that the president can only fight these mini 60-day wars without congressional approval in the case of an imminent threat to national security. What conceivable imminent threat to national security did Iran pose? None. The only purpose for this was the Netanyahu imagined and crafted purpose of regime change in Iran, which allows him to stay in office longer because it creates this foreign enemy that will unite the Israeli people behind him. Right now, they are united behind him because their country has come under attack. Fierce, horrific attack. It was Netanyahu who asked for the ceasefire and not the Iranians. I don't know why Thomas Massie offered to withdraw his motion, probably because it won't even be brought up for a debate or a vote. That's the way the House operates. The House is run by Christian nationalists who call themselves conservative Republicans. They believe that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu can do no wrong. Trump's behavior was patently unconstitutional. The statute is unconstitutional. Bombing a foreign country that poses no imminent grave threat to the United States is unconstitutional, and Massie is correct.
It sounds...
But Massie embarrasses the president and embarrasses the Congress because he defends the Constitution, and they couldn't care less about it.
So, Judge, it sounds as if you're sort of echoing what the Speaker of the House was saying earlier today, but for different reasons, that the War Powers Act itself is unconstitutional. Of course, his argument would be because it's unconstitutional because he wants the president to have the power to do what he wants anyway. But
that was President Nixon's argument when he vetoed the War Power Resolution, which was enacted over his veto. The impulse for it was Nixon's expansion of the Vietnam War into Cambodia.
Yes. So the War Powers Act is in and of itself unconstitutional because the Congress has illegally granted powers that it should have constitutionally to the president. So it seems like it's a tangled mess. In some ways, then, Congressman Thomas Massie, by calling for a vote on the War Powers Resolution, is using an unconstitutional law to advance a moral view of foreign policy. Would you agree with that?
I don't think he's abusing an unconstitutional law. He's restating the constitutional truism. His resolution only has about 9 lines to it. That only Congress can declare war, and the president shall not start a war with a foreign country without a declaration from Congress.
Okay, so
how could anybody possibly oppose that?
Well, I didn't say abuse. I said use. He's using the War Power Act in order to advance, his view and his vision of foreign policy when it comes to the president. I don't know why he decided to say that he would pull it if the ceasefire holds, but it could be just that he doesn't feel like falling on his sword necessarily, because he and the president have been at loggerheads for weeks and weeks now, starting with the big beautiful bill recently for their recent dust up, and then of course the Iran-Israel conflict.
Every time Trump goes on a tirade against Massie, raises a couple of million dollars for his campaign reelection.
Which makes me wonder if this isn't some giant conspiracy between Thomas Massie and Donald Trump to get him reelected, because you know as well as I do that as soon as Massie wins his primary election, that President Trump is going to endorse him in the general. So this is all...
Actually, Massie has stated, he told me this, but he also said it publicly, so I can reveal it. He might not run for re-election. He might run for governor of Kentucky, which Trump, of course, would endorse. He'd get the Republican nomination. I prefer him in the House, but he knows better what is the best use of his time and his talents. But without him in the House, there is no defender of the Constitution. The so-called Freedom Caucus are a bunch of wimps. They're just looking for Christmas tree ornaments from the Congress on their Christmas tree. They are big government Republicans under the guise of saving money. They vote for all this extension of the debt ceiling and borrowing. Massie is the only one that is truly intellectually honest.
Judge, in looking at historic parallels of this is the political question here of the Republican Party. For a while, there was Ronald Reagan's three-legged stool. Earlier, you were talking about the Christian nationalists who were in charge of the Republican Party at this point. Previously, the majority power was held by neoconservatives, or what Reagan might have called defense conservatives. You and I probably would have fallen under the leg of the fiscal conservatives. And then there were the social conservatives at the time. Politics is really, it's been completely rewritten in the Republican Party since the 1980s to today. What would you say are the major factions of the Republican Party today if you were trying to construct maybe a three or even a four-legged stool of the ideological, philosophical makeup of the Republican Party from Reagan until today? How have things changed, would you say? And what would you say are like the dominant ideological factions of the party?
Oh, I'm kind of a cynic on this, Austin. I only believe Massie. The others are a bunch of big government Republican phonies that just want to get reelected, almost to a person. Anybody that votes to increase debt, anybody that votes to expand the size of the government doesn't understand the Constitution and doesn't understand economics 101. I don't even know that this is ideological anymore. There is the so-called Freedom Caucus. They've got all caucuses for all kinds of things. I can't answer the question. I'm not a student of Republicanism because it makes me want to vomit. They stand for nothing. Nothing.
Thank you.
Totally kowtow to whatever Donald Trump wants. They have no principles. They have no ideology. They don't understand natural rights. They don't understand the Bill of Rights. They vote to extend the Patriot Act. They vote to give the Defense Department $1 trillion. They vote to fund 750 to 800. They don't even know the number of foreign military installations. They're useless from your perspective and mine.
Certainly, Judge, and we're grateful for your cynical analysis. Even if it's cynical. Judge Andrew Napolitano, he's the host of the Judging Freedom podcast, which you can download on any of your mobile devices and read his columns every week at judgenap.com. Required reading for any freedom lover. Make sure, again, that you download his podcast, Judging Freedom. You can also watch it on YouTube and read judgenap.com for his takes on the news of the day. Judge, preach it, Judge Nap, says Drew Van Runkle over in the chat. A lot of big fans of the judge. Of course, he joins us every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Central Time. We call it Big Brain Time with Judge Andrew Napolitano, a great friend of freedom and a friend of the show. Judge, in terms of our civil liberties, out of all of the Bill of Rights, which would you say of our enumerated rights in the Bill of Rights are under attack the most?
Well, certainly the Fourth Amendment, which prohibits searches and seizures without warrants. The government warrantlessly seizes, arrests people. It warrantlessly searches electronically. It's almost rendered the Fourth Amendment useless. And of course, the First Amendment, the government punishes speech that it hates and fears. It holds back funds from colleges and universities and tries to interfere with their internal operation if they permit you to speak publicly against the government of Benjamin Netanyahu. So it arrests you on the streets of Los Angeles and prohibits you from demonstrating. It arrests you for very benign, typically American, traditionally American civil disobedience, which violates your freedom of assembly as well as your freedom of speech. So certainly the First and the Fourth are the ones that most come under attack. With respect to immigrants, the Fifth comes under attack because that guarantees due process. The government doesn't want to give due process because it doesn't have a case against most of these people. And the government loses just about every time due process is granted. So we're living in an era where the police state is coming. Our mutual friend Joe Loria of Consortium News said, "Judge, you're wrong. It's not coming. It's already here."
Judge, just to pivot here for a moment, I wonder what you think. Do you have any particular thoughts on the election of Zohran Mamdani to the position of the Democratic primary holder for the mayor's race in the city that you and I both lived in together and worked in together for a period, New York City? Zohran Mamdani likely to become the next mayor of New York, an open Islamist socialist. Your thoughts?
Well, Andrew Cuomo, even though I don't agree with him politically, is a longtime family friend of mine. He's about the most moderate, level-headed person you're going to get in a very, very liberal city like this. But the Democratic Party, instead of picking a moderate, level-headed person, I know he's got baggage, they picked the most left-wing person running. This is very, very bad for business. Wall Street was caught napping on this one. Wall Street usually gets involved in these campaigns. Now, Andrew had a tremendous amount of money to spend. I don't know if he could have spent any more, but Wall Street did nothing. Now they're going to pay a very serious price. This will drive big business out of the city. And there's no stopping him because the city council is cut from the same cloth. Now, there still is a general election. The current mayor is running for re-election in some made-up party. A notorious but popular conservative Republican by the name of Curtis Sliwa is running under the Republican line. And Andrew will probably run under the line of another made-up party. So anything can happen. The winner only needs more votes than the others. But we have this damned system here in New York where you vote for more than one person. So you rank the candidates. If your candidate doesn't finish first, then your second place votes count. So it's a bizarre system, which is almost guaranteed to assure that the ideological base, in this case, hard left, will always prevail.
It is a shame to see this once great city, but no matter what you think of Giuliani or Bloomberg, it did seem as if the city was having a strong moment. It was on the way up, but ever since Bill de Blasio, whatever you want to call him, took over, that city has really just been on a downward spiral. It's sad to see, and I actually don't share the views, and maybe it's because I lived there, but I don't share the views of so many conservatives that I see saying, "Good, give them what they want." Give them, democracy, of course, being the idea that the common man knows what he wants and deserves to get it good and hard. I don't necessarily feel that way about New York City. I'd like to see it do something good for a change, but do you think it's doomed?
By the way, I agree with you. The idea of people hating New York, wanting it to collapse, is reprehensible. It's still the financial capital of the world. I don't think it's doomed. I think it'll just suffer. And then some moderate, it could be Andrew again, it could be somebody on the Republican Party, will rise from the ashes in 4 years. But we have a very liberal governor, a very liberal state legislature. The only check on the craziness in Manhattan would be a moderate mayor, and it doesn't appear as though we're going to have that unless some event or surprise occurs in November.
It's a shame. Judge, who do you have coming up on your incredible show, Judging Freedom, viewed by millions and millions of people all over the world?
My goodness, on Sunday, I did a rare Sunday show to talk about the bombing on Saturday night with Scott Ritter for 30 minutes. 775,000 views. It's just a remarkable, mind-boggling number. Today I have Max Blumenthal, Professor Glenn Deason, Ambassador Craig Murray, Phil Giraldi, the CIA agent who told George W. Bush Saddam Hussein does not have weapons of mass destruction, and our mutual friend who writes for Judge Knapp and for Mises, Karen Kwiatkowski. So I have a full day coming up. But I'm very grateful to my viewers. We broke 600,000 subscriptions yesterday, and the numbers are just flying off the charts.
I didn't know that
Gregor was on with me at 1 o'clock. By 6 o'clock, 300,000 people had watched them.
Wow, that's incredible, Judge. I didn't know that Karen Kwiatkowski was writing for JudgeNap.com. Even more of a reason for people to visit JudgeNap.com.
Oh,
she's a legend.
She's absolutely terrific. I mean, a retired lieutenant colonel in Air Force intelligence who just happens to have a PhD in political philosophy.
I should definitely reach out to her and have her on my show sometime because I miss her insights.
Wonderful. She's a draw.
Yeah, for sure. Judge, you're a draw. That's why we love having you on Wednesday mornings. Thanks so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you again next week.
We'll see you next week. All the best.
Thank you very much. Take care, Judge.
Jim and Susan spent more than $130,000 on their brand new RV, and every camping trip has been a disaster.
We're at a point where just give us our money back.
Hi, I'm Liz. What you're watching on this channel is Social Media in Action. It's using social media for good. It's through the power of this channel that I have been able to help owners of defective RVs.
Look at that coming in. You spent over $100,000 on that stinking thing, and look at the water coming in.
He's stuck in a nightmare. In less than a year, I've been able to get 11 buybacks, numerous cash settlements, and factory repairs. This is all thanks to you for liking, subscribing, and sharing, making this channel the force that it is. Today, as Susan and Jim tell their story about their problematic brand new RV, try to put yourself in their shoes. How would you feel? Are their expectations reasonable? And how would you want Forest River to respond? And I will have Forest River's response later in the video.
We decided to get a small RV. The one that kind of suited our needs was the Coachman Cross Trail made by Forest River. We live in Alaska. I have previously owned a couple of RVs. I had absolutely no problems with those units. We paid $131,000.
It had the solar for going off grid, as well as it just seemed to fit the size that we needed for the two of us.
And we found one in Savannah. I grabbed my camera, took some pictures of where the water was coming out of the wall. By the way, it kept coming out of the wall. I thought, well, I'm going to get a video. So I videoed from outside of the unit, but underneath the unit. It was just steadily dripping. And I made sure that the water pump wasn't
All right,
pumping.
friends, let's talk about freedom on four wheels and why it's going up in smoke, literally. Picture this. You're a red-blooded American. You work hard. You save your cash. You dream of hitting the open road. You buy an RV, the big one, the fifth-wheel trailer, the rolling symbol of your escape from Bidenomics, HOA meetings, and TikTok youth socialism. And then it catches fire. Now, that's not hyperbole. This is Forest River, the Berkshire Hathaway-owned behemoth. That's the one that this couple was talking about. They're cranking out trailers with all the care of a TikTok trend. Fast, cheap, and destined to fall apart before the summer's over. This isn't one story, though. This is systemic. This is what happens when an industry gets too big, too arrogant, and too immune to accountability. This is corporate rot with a $6 billion price tag. So we're going to walk through this piece by burning piece. This is from an article I pulled in the Wall Street Journal. A Montana highway patrolman named Jay Nelson buys a Forest River RV, a dream trip with his wife and 3 daughters. That's what he wants. And then he glances in the mirror and sees smoke. He pulls over, grabs the fire extinguisher, saves his family's life. The cause, allegedly, wiring defects. Okay? Allegedly. Hundreds of dollars in damage, and that's a lucky version. And then here's the kicker. 4 years later, the company finally issues a recall on 41,000 vehicles for the same wiring problem. That's not just negligence. In one situation, it might be. That is institutional rot. And now Nelson is suing not just for himself, but potentially on behalf of millions of Forest River customers who may be driving death traps disguised as dream machines. Andy Opperman says, so you got to have a 100K barn to park your 150K RV in if you want it to last more than 5 or 6 years. Womp womp. Yeah. And who owns Who owns Forest River? Warren Buffett. Yeah, the same guy the Democrats idolize as the gentle grandfather of capitalism. He bought Forest River in a 20-minute phone call, said he didn't even need to visit a plant, and guess what? He still hasn't. He hasn't visited. Let me say that again. The man who owns the largest RV manufacturer in America has never visited a single plant, but sure, tell me more about his moral capitalism and why we should tax that evil Elon Musk. No, he's the problem. The factory conditions, piece rate pay, workers are paid by the unit, not by the hour. Get it done fast, punch it out early. And then when your bonus depends on speed, of course, guess what happens to the quality? Let me read to you just one gem that I pulled from the recall reports. Workers punctured microwaves with screws that were too long. That's not a mistake. That's a symptom. These aren't luxury builds, folks. These are slapped together boxes with wheels, cranked out in Elkhart, Indiana, like they're flipping burgers. So you're microwaving your burger or whatever, and it's got holes, so you got radiation escaping. It couldn't be funnier if it was written by a Hollywood writer. And then they had another recall that showed that there were incorrect fuses inserted into power distribution centers. And guess why? So you would think, oh, they just screwed up. They accidentally put the wrong fuses in. No, they accidentally put the wrong fuses in on purpose. Oxymoron. The factory ran out of the correct fuses. I kid you not. They ran out of the correct fuses. So they deliberately accidentally used the wrong fuses in there. Maybe we do need government-run RV plants. Just kidding. Let me ask you something. If Boeing ran out of bolts, would you still want to fly on a Boeing? And they were out of bolts. Just use the wrong bolt, right? But with Forest River, it's like, nah, it's close enough. Slap a sticker on it, roll it out the door. And the scale of this is gigantic. Forest River has more recalls than GM and Chrysler combined, and they make a fraction of the vehicles that those two corporations make. And yet they're still advertising themselves as a, quote, well-oiled machine. No, friends, they're a well-oiled fire hazard. And here's where this gets darker. People have actually died, right? That's the case of Heather Timmerman and Christy Zernick. Their RV caught fire while they were laying in bed. They escaped with their lives, but lost their cats and all of their belongings. Months later, they get a letter saying that their camper was part of a recoil. Let that sink in. The RV wasn't just defective, it was known to be defective. And the company only sent a notice after the fire. That's not a customer service failure, that's moral collapse. So what is Forest River's defense? They say we recall things out of an abundance of caution, even when we don't believe that a safety defect exists. Okay. Then why is their own data showing that the recalls are due to manufacturing errors, not bad parts? And why did Forest River pay a $5 million federal fine in 2015 for hiding recall-worthy problems? Folks, when you hear we're just being cautious, what they really mean is we know it's dangerous, but we don't want to get sued again. So zoom out on all of this. This is the other side of American decline. It's not just the government that fails you. It's not just Kamala and the IRS. It's private industry, too, that has lost its soul. It's Wall Street buying up dreams and outsourcing the risk to you. It's a culture where corporations don't build for the long haul. They build for the IPO or for the quarterly report. And then when it goes wrong, they point to some fine print in a 30-page warranty, and then they call it your problem. All right, but here's the sad truth. The people who buy these RVs, they're not elites. These are retired veterans, they're working families, they're couples that are cashing out their retirement savings to see Mount Rushmore and Yellowstone before the country finishes falling apart. And what do they get? A flaming box of poo and regret. And then when they try and get it fixed, they're met with a corporate voicemail hell, right? The unreturned emails, and then we're not responsible for dealer modifications. This isn't just fraud. This is betrayal. So what do? I think first we do what this couple are doing, the video that we're watching there. I think that we name and shame, right? Consumer protection laws maybe that have teeth, right? Third, maybe pull the curtain back on these corporations pretending to be, quote, small town Americana, where they're really just legal Ponzi schemes with product lines. And if Warren Buffett wants to talk about ethics and taxes again, maybe somebody should ask him why he can't spare 20 minutes to walk through a plant that he owns. Because if you're going to sell the American dream, maybe don't build it out of cheap particle board, bad wiring, and excuses. This wasn't about RVs. This is about what happens when institutions, when public and private institutions stop fearing consequences. The government spies on you, the corporations sell you fire hazards, and the only ones left to keep you safe is you. Welcome to the new frontier. It's not free, but it sure is flammable.
The water. So we shut it off. It continued to drip for quite a while. I've got towels just shop, especially since the dealer wasn't going to be able to get to us soon enough.
But before we took it in, we decided we better, take some of our personal belongings out of it and just clear the space so none of our stuff is in their way. I lifted up a little throw rug that I had in the kitchen area, and something didn't look right. And I said to Tim, this linoleum's lifting up. It looks like there's a board underneath of here that's lifting up. And that wasn't there before. So we were like, could this possibly be related to the water leaks we've had? Is there damage? We're just concerned. This is Florida. We don't want to have a problem with water damage.
I talked to him after that. We spent a lot of money and now we can't use our vehicle. We were the ones who should be upset. There were so many things that seemed to point us toward maybe it being a refurbished unit.
We purchased it December 3. We know that Hurricane Helene went through Savannah, Georgia in September of 2024. Maybe this was damaged at some point during that hurricane.
So that's the big lesson, is to have it inspected with a third-party inspector. I just hate it to say it. You can't trust people that what they tell you is true. We've been lied to so many times that's why I don't want to talk to the one service manager.
He said, it's done. Pick it up and it's ready to go. Now we're back in Alaska. We indicated that we wanted an inspector that was certified through the NRVIA to ensure that all the repairs were properly done and we were restored to new. We were told that they couldn't approve that due to liability issues. We said this is standard practice. We've spoken to many RV owners, and they have indeed been allowed into the dealerships and even in the factories to do these inspections. We don't have any confidence that this unit has been fully restored for us. Once they said we couldn't have an inspector, a certified inspector, how do we know that indeed all of these repairs are completed? We feel like we've been completely ghosted.
The boomers are the generation to fool. Very sad. But let's not rip on the boomers too much. It's time for us to rip on the Zoomers. Zoomers are broke, bored, and back in mom's basement. All right, Patriots, you've heard of OK Boomer. Did anybody feel like saying OK Boomer after watching that? Let me introduce you to the sequel that absolutely no one asked for. Please help me, Mr. Boomer. Because Gen Z, the Zoomers, the avocado toast anarchists, the TikTok Marxists are broke. Not struggling, not tightening their belts. I mean flat broke. I mean skip brunch and steal Wi-Fi from a Starbucks broke. We've got a full-blown economic identity crisis among 18 to 24-year-olds, and it's hitting retailers, employers, and actually our very culture right in the wallet. And the punchline is they did everything right, and it still turned out wrong. So let's start with the data. In-store and online purchases by Zoomers fell 13% year over year between January and April. That's not a dip. That is an economic nosedive. This is the kind of plunge you'd expect if America were in a recession, which by the way, it basically is if you're under 30 and you're trying to pay rent. Their spending on apparel down 11%, accessories down 18%. Tech, down 14%. Small appliances, down 18%. And the optimism, boom, down for the count. They're done with it. There is no optimism amongst the young. These are the same kids who were promised the world if they just followed the progressive playbook. Go to college, get the loans, major in something ending in studies, march in the right protests, vote blue, buy a ring light, complain about capitalism on your iPhone 14. But what are they getting? They're getting debt, they're getting layoffs, and they're getting a charm bracelet party in their friend's garage. So let's paint the picture. I don't know. No, I like charms. Charm bracelets are okay. So Sheeta Verma, 25, got her dream job in marketing at a tech startup. 6 figures, big city, big plans. She moves into an apartment in San Francisco with a list of 200 bars and restaurants that she wanted to try. Guess how many she's been to? Less than 10. Here's why. Cocktails, $20. And she says, and even when I'm willing to splurge, I can't find a friend who can afford to go with me. And that, folks, is the most poetic summary of the Gen Z economy you're ever going to hear. It's not a recession. It's a group depression with push notifications. And look, I get it. Life is tough when the whole system's rigged against you. But here's where I kind of stop with the sympathy train, okay? Because instead of questioning why the system is broken, they're demanding more of the system. Does anybody remember the meme that came out of the Occupy Wall Street protests where it showed that chick who was protesting and she says that she wants more government and she's getting pepper sprayed in the face with a hot blast of pepper spray, and it says on the pepper spray, more government? Yeah, they're going to get more of what they voted for. I was just underemployed at a grocery store when I got a call from a staffing agency, said JJ4884. Well, there you go. God. So higher taxes, more government programs, universal basic income, and of course, Generation Z wants climate reparation and free emotional support dogs for everyone with anxiety, right? Their answer to the broken promises isn't tear down the Fed, it's tear down the landlords. It's not maybe I shouldn't have majored in gender astrology, it's why does Jeff Bezos have a yacht? And now we're seeing a cultural shift, which might actually end up being a good thing. Saving money is kind of the new flex. The kids used to show off Louis Vuitton belts. Now they're bragging about $20 press-on nails from Target. One Generation Z girl said it's like telling someone your dress has pockets, which is a thing that girls like to do. I don't know. But translation is, I'm poor but proud. Another Generation Z guy, this is from the Wall Street Journal, wait for it. He hangs out in fancy furniture stores because the coffee is free and the couches are plush. That's actually quite clever. He and his friends play a game guessing the price tags of things that they'll never buy. We used to call that loitering. Now it's a sustainable social activity. And in the meantime, credit card debt skyrocketing. Delinquency rates for 18 to 29-year-olds are now the highest since the pandemic. They're not just broke, they're behind. And worse, they're becoming used to it. This is not the roaring 20s redux. This is the shrugging 20s. I'll Venmo you next week, right? They say knowing full well their bank account looks like a ghost town in a Depression-era Western. And what's driving this? So let's take a look at this again from the Wall Street Journal. Student loans are back. Biden's pause is over, and the reality is hitting like a tax refund with JK stamped on it. Job insecurities everywhere. Tech companies handed out layoffs like candy at a socialist Halloween parade. Cost of living is rising. Wages aren't. And most tragically of all, they keep voting for it. Now, let me tell you this other story. This is Sky Bowie. She's a college student at NYU. Almost out, almost ready to take on the world, but no paid internship, no job offers, and a mountain of dread. She said, even though I did everything I was supposed to do, the system seems stacked against me. Well, sweetheart, because it is. The system was built by the very people that you supported, the bureaucrats, the technocrats, the careerist hacks who handed you diversity quotas instead of an actual economy. And you went down to the ballot box and you voted for you've been getting little drips of cyanide. It's like those moms who poison their kids with like a little bit of bleach in their soup. You went down and you decided to drink straight Clorox. You decided to drink straight bleach and vote for Zohran Mamdani. That, as if that was the solution. You know what's going to wreck the generations in the financial future of these generations? It wasn't boomers buying too many houses. It was progressives printing money and promising utopia. And the real tragedy is that their economic stagnation is shaping their behavior long term. Retailers say Zoomers now making fewer purchases, waiting longer between trips, and they're choosing lower tier products. This means that the companies that they once loved are now pricing them out or just giving up on them entirely. The fun generation, they called them, is fun no more. One girl said, trying to save money has become cool, which would be good if we had a real economy. But we don't. From brunch to budgeting, from Supreme hoodies to clearance rack cardigans. So what happens next? Retailers are scared now. Brands that rely on impulse buys, micro trends, and disposable income are watching the Zoomer demographic evaporate. So this is kind of Gen Z's depression moment. And instead of storming the banks like Occupy Wall Street did, at least you see the Occupy Wall Street had an iota of an idea of what the problem was. They're sharing discount codes and just accepting their fate, splitting Uber Eats bills 5 ways. And of course, what is the left going to see this as a call for more stimulus? But for us, it's a wake-up call for hard reality, because when you've been sold a lie your whole life, the first truth hurts the most. There is no bailout coming.
Just some advice, because you come under fire a lot. Our moms are standing for things that often the media attacks them on. We'd love to get some advice from you about running for office.
Yeah, so I would say don't do it.
No, run for office. We want you to run for office.
I do say this, though. It is nastier to run as a Republican than it is. Now, I'm the ultimate, they suffer from a thing called TDS. Do you know what that is? TDS, it's a horrible, horrible terminal disease. It destroys the mind. It destroys the mind before the body, but the body eventually goes. TDS is Trump derangement syndrome. They have it at levels. They can't even stand their life. They can't stand anything. And, part of the reason is I won an election which everybody said couldn't be won.
Very good, Mr. President. Got about 15 minutes left on the Wake Up America show. Don't forget to click the like button. And if you haven't already, click the follow button. If today's your first time here on the Wake Up America show, we'd love to have you be a regular guest. It's a 5-day-a-week, 2-hour live show, Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Like clockwork, we are right here on the Freedom Watch. We'd love to have you be a regular guest. So make sure you click that follow button so that you can be a regular guest. All right, folks. So as we close out the show today, I want to take you back to reality that, the kind of reality doesn't care about your pronouns or your feelings, but does care about your borders, your soft policies, and national security. Because while we were kind of, debating Zoomer pizza parties and socialist city councils, Ayatollah's agents were already here. That's right. According to federal documents, U.S. intelligence, and a memo from Customs and Border Protection, Iranian-backed sleeper cells may already be inside the United States, and they weren't flown in. They walked in. Over 1,500 Iranian nationals have crossed illegally through our southern border during Biden's presidency, and more than 700 were released into the United States after their arrest. Released, not deported, not screened with military-level interrogation, just let go like it's an open mic night at a college coffee house. And now, in the aftermath of Iran's nuclear sites being turned to rubble by U.S. and Israeli forces, what do we hear? Iran threatens to activate these sleeper cells right here inside our borders as a retaliation. Remember, this is a regime that plotted to assassinate Salman Rushdie and nearly succeeded. It's the same regime that planned hits on President Trump. Yes, the man that liberals call a dictator was being hunted by actual terrorists from an actual dictatorship. And court documents confirm this. One of the suspects, Farhad Shakari, And Zohran Mamdani, no, I'm kidding, that's the new potential mayor of New York City. He was working on behalf of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the same organization that Biden refused to designate as a terrorist group. Here's the most haunting line from this article, and this should chill every American to the bone. Globalization extends the battlefields of regional wars to our own land and airspace. You get that? Listen. Iran doesn't need long-range missiles to reach us. They use our visa system. They use our porous border. They exploit the naivete of liberals who think that all cultures are equal and no foreigner should ever be vetted. We used to fight wars overseas to protect the homeland, ostensibly. Now we let the war walk in through the front gate, and we give it a court date and a bus ticket to Ohio. So let's talk about the real Trump doctrine. This is the one that the media won't quote, right? He cut off the cash to Iran. He slapped down the nuclear deal that funded terror proxies. He shut down flights from terror-prone nations, and he enforced the border. Not because he was a racist, but because he understood war in the 21st century. Border security is national security, period. You want to stop sleeper cells? You can't do it with candles and hashtags after a bombing. You have to do it by not letting them in to begin with. But then Biden and their crowd, right, they call this xenophobic. They say that walls don't work, but tell that to Hezbollah. Tell that to Iran's Revolutionary Guard, because they believe in walls. They build them around their nuclear sites. Right? Now the real question here, the dangerous question, the one that no one in the White House press corps will ask. What if one of those sleeper cells already has a target? What if there's another Salman Rushdie just walking into a bookstore today? Or another Trump walking in a rally? Or another 9/11 brewing quietly, right? While, the Democrats are busy chasing pronoun compliance and environmental justice. The history is screaming at us. 5 of the 9/11 hijackers were here illegally. 14 more were here legally, but never vetted properly. This isn't new. It's the same war, just a different battlefield. And here we are in 2025. We've let hundreds of people in from a country that's actively plotting revenge for strikes that we launched in self-defense. So let's end with this. America, we are geographically blessed. We have 2 oceans. We have no neighbors that want to wipe us off the map. And we have a proud history of avoiding the kind of chaos that the old world has. But now we're importing the chaos. The border isn't just a humanitarian issue. It's a security issue, and it's a sovereignty issue, and it is the front line of modern warfare. This isn't about xenophobia. This is about survival. And if we don't control who comes in, we will lose control over what comes next. And that's where I'm going to leave it today, friends. It's been a fantastic show today. From socialists in New York to sleeper cells on Main Street, it's all part of the same theme. When you let your guard down, somebody else picks up a weapon. Liberty is not self-sustaining. The price of liberty is, that's right, eternal vigilance. I knew that you would say it. We're going to be back tomorrow. Same time, same fight. Until then, stay armed, stay sharp, stay free. And as you exit, don't forget to exit out the grift shop. What's the grift shop, AP? What's the grift shop? You go to forlibertyshop.com. We do a little grifting. We do a little grift. We do a little grifting. But first, we must sift through forlibertyshop.com. Visit forlibertyshop.com. We are days away from pulling the earring collection. I think we'll wait until the 4th of July to say goodbye to the earrings at forlibertyshop.com. At the number 4libertyshop.com, our collection of Liberty earrings, they all have 5 stars. It's just the supplier is a real pain to work with. They are high quality products, but at the end of the day, forlibertyshop.com's got to make money, because when you make purchases at forlibertyshop.com, it all feeds back into keeping the For Liberty Network live on the show. You can get shirts like the one I'm wearing today. All gun laws are an infringement shirts at forlibertyshop.com. If you like the shirt that you're seeing me wear right now, all gun laws are an infringement. It's a beautiful shirt. You can get one at forlibertyshop.com. That's the number, forlibertyshop.com. All gun laws are an infringement. Well, of course, except for the Second Amendment. If the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, then if you haven't visited forlibertyshop.com, you're not doing your job. to secure liberty. Because when you wear a shirt like this, or earrings like that, or the We the People earrings, the Constitution earrings, you might start a conversation that will turn more people on to the ideas of economic freedom and personal liberty. What could be better than a towel that shows a great white shark like an American flag and says the Gulf of America, to start a conversation, to make new friends, to keep the fight for freedom alive. We're going to keep coming to you guys every 5 days. I hope that I see your name backwards tomorrow morning, that you'll click the like button and the follow button before you leave. And as you exit, you will exit through the gift shop, grab yourself a beach towel, and we'll see you guys right back again here tomorrow on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Bye, guys. Thank you.
When the Founding Fathers dreamed of liberty, they forgot one thing: coffee. Introducing Founding Flavors Coffee, the brew that built America, and the brew that's fueling a new revolution, one kitchen at a time. Small batch roasted, Patriot approved, and disappearing fast.